Hello! Today I wanted to do a glamorous smoky eye and also have a few tips on how to fight off those awful winter skins, so whether it be from a cold or the cold weather, just a few long wearing tips, and also something that will just be great for the party season coming up throughout the winter. So I hope you enjoy, and please let me know if there's anything else you want me to cover. So let's address the main issue when it comes to having a cold, which is your skin. That tends to really suffer. I get dryness, obviously around the nose, and then also a little bit of shine as the day goes on. Your eyes get a bit puffy and they can water, so you really need everything to last. Start the skin. First of all, I'm going to use a little bit of moisturiser. I'm using the Bioderma Crayoline, and this one's the anti-redness formula, so it's got a tiny green tint to it. Don't panic when you pump a little bit out. It won't read as green, but it should just knock down a little bit of redness. Next, I'm going to use a primer, and that will just help the foundation not transfer off when you're blowing your nose or wear off during the day. This one I'm going to use the MAC Prep and Prime Skin in Natural Radiance. So just one pump of that. The foundation I'm going to use is Makeup Forever HD foundation, just because it's quite long wearing. The brush I'm using is the MAC 157, and that's a sort of shorter head, denser stippling brush, just so you can buff it on, blend that in the face, not worrying about being too perfect, because I'm going to go back in with a beauty blender. This is just, I just run it under the tap and then squeeze off the excess water. This just really helps bounce the foundation onto the skin, especially if you don't want it to look too heavy and you don't want it to gather on any dry areas you might have. The concealer I'm going to use is the NARS Creamy Radiant Concealer, and that's brilliant because it has really good coverage, but it's not going to feel dry and cakey, especially if you're feeling a little bit under the weather. But it's nice all the time anyway, especially right in this area here, the inside of the eye. For the eyeshadow base, I'm going to use the MAC Paint Pot. This shade's in Groundwork, so it's a great neutral colour and it's water resistant, so it will really help the eyeshadow lock in place, especially if you get watery eyes when you have a cold. I'm going to apply this just with my fingers because it's quick and easy, doesn't gunk up your brushes, and actually I find you get a bit of a better colour payoff when you use your fingers with these paint pots. I want to create a really wearable brown smoky eye. This one is just going to suit a lot of different skin tones, and it's going to be great if you are just feeling a little bit run down, you want to feel a bit more glamorous. I am actually going to use a MAC Fluid Line, which is a gel eyeliner, and I'm going to use it to create an instant bit of a smoky base to the eyeshadow. This will really help then to make it more long wearing and more waterproof. So using a synthetic brush, just really roughly. You have to work quite quickly with these because you really want the edges to be blended out, but using the synthetic brush, just really quickly and roughly apply it across the lid. And I'm going to use a MAC 217 just to blend out those edges. I'm going to use all Makeup Geek eyeshadows. I'm fairly new to the party, I know I'm a bit late, but I am from the UK, so they're a little bit harder to get hold of here. The highlighter I'm going to use is Shimmer Shimmer, which is similar to MAC Shroom, but a little bit more pigmented. There's a tiny bit just to really brighten that area. I'm just going to blend it out. I'm going to use the Makeup Geek eyeshadow in Mesmerised pressed onto the lid. This one's one of their foiled ranges, so it's very pigmented and has a really great highlight. So I'm just going to use it mainly just right on the centre of the eye. Blend it out a little bit. Don't worry if it drops down. We haven't put too much concealer or foundation underneath, so we can clean that up. I'm going to use the Corrupt eyeshadow, which is a really matte black. And I'm just going to press a little bit on the outside edge, quite a classic shape, the outer V, so it keeps the eyes looking open, but creates a little bit more drama. The shade I'm using through the crease is Makeup Geek's Latte. I'm using this with a nice soft blending brush. This one's from Royal Brushes for the crease. You could leave it like that, but just to make sure we're really diffused and really blended, I'm going to go for Purely Naked eyeshadow. That will really make sure we're really diffused. This one's also really good if you do think you've gone a bit too high or a bit too dark, because it will just knock that back. I'm just going to use a little bit of Mocha eyeshadow, just right in that area, just to deepen it up a little bit. Mocha from Makeup Geek is similar shade to MAC Espresso, dark brown, and not far off from the original fluid line we used. The eyeliner I'm going to use today is long wearing and water resistant. It's from Smashbox, it's called Onyx. Really roughly scribble it all over top lash line, making sure to get right in between your lashes so you're not left with any skin showing, and then using the eyeshadow brush I used earlier with the black eyeshadow, I'm just going to diffuse out that line. So before I do the eyeliner underneath, I want to go back with the concealer. For this I'm using the NARS Radiant Concealer again. Using the NARS concealer, I'm just going to add a bit more coverage around the nose, roughly apply it and then blend it in using the Beauty Blender. Make sure we hide any of that awful redness. To set my foundation, I'm going to use the MAC Mineralized Powder. Just scribbling in a little bit more to the outer edge so we can keep your eyes looking big, and then blend it out with a MAC pencil brush. To set it in place, I'm going to use the same pencil brush and then the Mocha eyeshadow from Makeup Geek. I was just going to introduce a little bit of that dark smoky brown to under the eyes. With the ZOEVA 231 brush, I'm going to use the Purely Naked eyeshadow, just a tiny bit, just to really make sure it's all set and diffused. Using the Bajor Full Volume Mascara. So I'm going to go back to the skin. I quite like going from eyes, skin, eyes. It just gives your eyes a bit of a break, especially if they're feeling a little bit watery. I'm going to use Anastasia Beverly Hills Contour Kit. With a MAC contour brush. And the doe shape, I'm just going to really push it into the hollow of my cheek. You can apply a little bit along the sides of your nose to contour, but as we're doing it for when you've got a bit of a cold, don't go mad, because you don't want to wipe your nose and then see an obvious contour missing. I'm going to blend out that contour with a bit of bronzer. You could just leave it like this, but I like to use a little bit of bronzer over the top because it does make it really airbrushed and really blended. For this I'm using NARS Laguna bronzer with a Real Techniques brush. This shade is the MAC cream colour base in Pearl. We use these cream highlighters so much backstage at London Fashion Week. You can use a tiny bit just down the centre of your nose, just to add to that highlight, and also just make your nose look nice and slim. You don't want too much of a highlight on the centre of the forehead because that's where you naturally get oily. And a little bit of a highlight just on the cupid's bow as well. That will just make your lips look fuller and poutier. Oh, I love a highlight. Every time I add a highlight I feel much healthier. I'm using a bit of the cream blusher. This is MAC Lady Blush, which is a natural pinky shade. And I'm using my finger so it's really worked in to the foundation. It's not just sat on the top. So to do the eyebrows, I'm going to use the MAC Omega eyeshadow with an angle brush. This is the MAC 266. I like to make them slightly stronger on the arch of the brow to create that definition, but then keep it a little bit more feathery and diffuse on the inside of the eye so you don't get too much of that angry brow. For a bit more structure and definition, I'm going to go in with the Anastasia Beverly Hills Brow Wiz. I'm mainly going to use that on the outer edge of the eye. And I have taken that brow a little bit too high, but nobody panic. I'm going to use a flat edge definer. This is just a Royal Brush flat edge definer with a little bit of concealer, which I quite like doing anyway for making them slightly more structured. So I'll pretend it's deliberate. Just me being haphazard. I'm going to lock the brows in place using a clear brow gel. This is the MAC brow set. I'm going to use my good old favourite lashes, Ardell Demi Wispies. I don't want to go too over the top with the lips because the eyes are quite made up, so I'm just going to use a little bit of MAC Cosmo lipstick, but I'm just going to press it on with my fingers. Just so it mimics a healthy, natural lip. It doesn't look too full on. Thank you for watching. I do also have an app with links of all the products used. I'll also try and include an in-depth review with pros and cons, and then also a link to where you can buy any of these products. This isn't a sponsored video, all of that jazz. I'm just doing this to try and help you and share some of my tips from working as a makeup artist. Thank you, bye!